This is Jason Gibson. I'm here with Randy Haas for another episode of ServiceSharp. We're going to be talking about upgrades and cloning. So I guess we'll get started.
Okay, sounds good, yeah. Upgrades and clones is probably a pretty good thing to talk about with ServiceNow because they have a release every 6 months. And so every 6 months you've got to make the decision, are we going to upgrade now or are we going to wait? Most organizations typically skip one, do one, skip one, or what?
Yeah, I've seen it both ways. You know, you got some companies that don't want to skip one because it is twice the work. So twice the risk of problems, twice the risk of everything. So if you can stay at every version, that's great. Maybe we can talk about some tips to try and stay at the version current. But most companies, I do see that. Yeah, they skip. They do it once a year, make sure and get it done. Takes a little longer doing it that way each time. I will say, though, that the faster you can get them done, the better. So you make use of things like ATFs, which are the automated testing framework. Those speed it up quite a bit. And the more closely you keep it to out of the box, you're going to get a faster upgrade process.
Right. We talked about that earlier when we were talking about configs and customizations. About anytime you add a configuration, you're adding some complexity to the upgrade. Now, when you add a customization, that's not, because that's part of the existing framework that ServiceNow knows how to account for when it does the upgrade, correct?
That's right. Absolutely. One of the things that I like to try and figure out is, you know, when we're deciding on that customization or that configuration, okay, so do we want to own it? Every time we do an upgrade, do we want twice a year or once a year to go through and make sure that that's still working? And that's the business decision, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's always bad, but it is about, you know, whether we want to make that decision. With one of the customers I've worked with is third customer ServiceNow. They're the older instance have been heavily customized. Shoot, it takes nearly 2 months to do an upgrade. Versus we've got one that's a fairly new, you know, fairly out of the box, minimal customizations, and we can get it done in 3 weeks. And that's being drastically reduced as we do the automated testing and things to that effect. So I'm really hoping the next upgrade with that customer, we get it done in a week and a half, 2 weeks. Well, at that point, you can do 2 weeks to a year.
Yeah. If you can do it fast enough, you definitely can. What all things factor into it besides the configurations or the customizations that you've done? What else figures into how long it takes to do an upgrade? How many versions back you are? Yeah. Does the size of the user base matter? Does that have any complexity, or is it just the number of customizations and the number of modules?
Typically, the number of customizations, number of modules. Those are the main drivers. If you've created a bunch of custom ACLs and a bunch of custom stuff on that sphere, yes, it can be difficult with more people, right? More roles, more things to look at, more concerns about this person or that person doesn't have access, and those are difficult. I think one of the most time consuming parts of it is the review and, you know, the getting the knowledge of what's going on in each upgrade. So Madrid's coming out. What does it include? What do we want to launch? Talking to your customer and saying, hey, do we want to make things run better, faster? Do we want to do just the things that are to do that? Or do we want to add some chatbot functionality, right? Do we want to build out the mobile side platform like Madrid has? Those things significantly delay it because you're not just making things better, you're also including things that are new, basic implementations, right?
But you have the option to upgrade and then do those as a second piece later on.
Yeah, but why shock your people? They know you're going to do an upgrade. Might as well throw it all in there and get it done once.
There's probably a couple of theories about how to do that.
I like to add small things, not big things. So, yeah. I mean, it's not like you would want to add project portfolio management, you know, at the same time, because,
right.
you know, that's a big chunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that extra widget or a little change here or there, if you can get that as part of the upgrade, if it really is part of the upgrade, right? I mean, we're not talking about, things that are completely off, like the Madrid mobile platform. That'll take a little bit of customization, not a lot, but it is something that is going to be out of the box anyway.
Okay. What else? What else do you need to think about when going into the upgrade? Well, let me go back. One thing that may be confusing to certain people is we talk about ServiceNow having modules, which is different pieces of functionality. But when you do an upgrade, that is the entire back end. You're not just upgrading one module at a time.
Right. It's everything. It's every one of the modules. Okay. So if you only have the ITSM stuff, it's the ITSM that's going to be improved. If you have ITSM and the IT business management and the IT operations management, if you've got all of it, right, the upgrade takes a little more time. The bigger it gets, more things to look at. So it's important though that you follow a good solid process to do the upgrade, including testing, right? We got to get internally to your team, but also end users.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. What should the process be to do the upgrade?
It's actually, interestingly enough, so you're going to go through different stages, things like research and planning, talking to your customers. You got to prepare the instance, make sure and get everything, all the development wrapped up in your test and dev. And then go ahead and do a clone before you do your test or before you upgrade. So you got to get the clone so it's as close to production as possible because you want to test, as close as possible.
And when you say clone, you're talking about taking your production environment and cloning it back to one of your other environments.
Right. I like to do dev, I like to call them subprod 1 and subprod 2 instead of test and dev because they're literally just clones of your production instance. So pick one of your subprod instances, get that one on the correct environment, and then test it, work with it. Then you want to upgrade your test environment, your subprod 2. Okay. And then that's where you apply the fixes, right, that you did in the development instance. You apply those to test. Then you go back through and test it again. Make sure everything's still working. And if it's still working and everything tests out good, that's when you're ready to move it to production.
Now, when you move it to production, are you cloning it to production, or are you running the upgrade process into production?
No, so you just run the upgrade process in production. But hopefully you've cloned every time you've done, so when you go to test, you're doing the same thing. You're going to clone it first, your subprod 2, you're going to clone it, then you're going to upgrade it. So you're going to make sure that that it's as close to production as possible. And be careful on your version because there's patching that goes on all the time. They've done the quarterly patching program. But if you're going from, let's say, London patch 6 to Madrid patch 3, you want to make sure that the London patch 6 and to Madrid patch 3 is what you do in each environment.
Makes sense.
So you don't want any surprises, I guess you would.
Okay.
I will say, though, clones aren't just for moving upgrades, right? So we want to make sure on a regular basis, monthly, as often as you can anyway, to clone your subprod instances to make sure that they're close. Anytime you're doing development, you got to keep them close.
Okay. And when you do the upgrade process, ServiceNow kicks off a compare script, basically. And the compare script goes out and runs and says, this is what you've altered versus what we've had. And so then it gives you basically a checklist of things that you need to go through and check in or make sure that they're working.
You gotta review each one at a code level. So you go into the skipped items. I'll give you a good example. In the Young instance, we had 69 skipped items, right? Okay. In the environment at the customer that was the third customer, ServiceNow, we had over 1,000 skipped items, right? And it's important at that point when you start identifying, hey, I've got 1,000 skipped items. we want to start rolling them back, right? So you go to a code level, see if it's anything that you can keep or they've come out with new functionality. And you have the option at that point, roll it back out of the box or keep it. Well, if you roll it back out of the box and it breaks something, you can go back into it and then go ahead and reapply that change, right? That skipped item. So you're not, if you roll it back, you're not doing yourself you're not causing any permanent problems, right?
And when you say roll it back, for the lay people or the business owners out there, rolling it back means taking a customization out and using an out-of-the-box functionality.
That's right. Okay. That's right. So what it does is it just pulls that out and makes it go back. For example, a script. If I change 10 lines in the script, when you roll it back out of the box, it rolls it back to the out-of-the-box script. And so those 10 lines are gone. And don't fret because, again, I've done this before. We roll back over 800 configuration items back out of the box from that one customization. Now we had to go back in about 10 or 15 of them and go, yeah, we really want to keep this. So we ended up having to fix those at that point. But that's kind of the way we were able to get closer and closer to being a newer instance.
Now, on that report, so say you're showing that report to a business owner or to a manager or something like that, and you're seeing skipped items on that report, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not live, that you're not ready to go. Skipped item just means this was customized.
Right, and we're skipping it. That's it.
Just means ServiceNow is not going to take your data and override it.
That's correct. Yeah, they're not going to override it. But it also means you own it. So if they change that script to make things better, and you've already changed the script, it's not going to upgrade it. So you own whatever that script is. So that's another reason to review those on a regular basis.
Now, say you skip it and you roll forward to the next version.
Right.
Does that cause more problems, or is it just a matter of rolling back if you decide you want to take that next version's functionality?
So it depends. If one's playing off the other, it can cause kind of a cascade effect. But ServiceNow's upgrade process is very complex, and so it actually, the next version comes out, it will tell you that it needs to be changed, right? But that's also, if you run into problems, that's also why you get, the ServiceNow guys on it. That you have support for everything that's in there. Just don't get too far behind. Don't make them force patch you.
Now there is a force process, so that's a good point. Let's talk about that for just a second, and then we'll pause and do a sponsor. But ServiceNow says that you have to maintain a certain level of up-to-date.
Yes.
Right? And what is that?
So they have a quarterly patching program that actually will go in and patch you quarterly in whatever instance, so whatever version you have. So if you stay current, you're going to be fine if you control your patches yourself. Otherwise, they'll just force patch. Now, if I'm on London patch 6, they're going to force patch me quarterly to London patch 7 and London patch 8. If I'm on Madrid, if I'm the most current patch, which I never want to be, by the way, then they may not do it. But that's not the way it works. So they're going to patch it quarterly regardless. The question is, who controls it? Do you go out there and do it and make sure that you control that patching yourself, or at least the knowledge behind when it's happening? Or do you allow them to do it without knowing?
Which is probably a bad idea.
Yeah, it just, you don't know, if nothing else, go out and make a change request from that patch, right? So it's going to be patching on this day. I need to be prepared. I need to know if something breaks that it could be the patch.
Now, when they do the patching, do they all generate the list the same as the upgrade?
No, no. But you do have the option to roll back patches. So that's one of the things during the upgrade process you can do. You can actually roll back the patches.
Now, from a major upgrade perspective, like a London and Madrid, how many versions behind are you allowed to be?
So I don't think they allow. I don't know the answer, honestly. Okay. I will say that I don't think they allow you to be back more than a couple versions, unsupported.
So at the minimum, you probably need to be planning on doing an upgrade once every 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea to do it every 2 years. I think it's a better idea to do it no less than every year.
Once a year.
If you're going to continue to get that far behind, you're not taking advantage of all the good stuff that they bring to the table every time.
Sounds good.
So we're going to take a quick break here.
This podcast was made with Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to create and publish your podcast. It's free. Creation tools with it allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Helps you distribute your podcast. It's super simple to publish to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, any of the major ones. You can make money from your podcast. There's no minimum listenership, so they make it super easy to monetize. It's really everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So why don't you go out and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started. And we're back talking about upgrades and cloning. And we talked a little bit about cloning, about preparing your environments, basically using the cloning process to prepare your environments and then doing the upgrade itself. So I'll just let Jason take it away and run through the stages of a good upgrade.
So first thing you're going to do is you're going to research and plan, make sure everybody is on board. If you have an ITS, a service management team, you need to get them on board. After you get the research and planning done, you're going to prepare the instance. This means you wrap up all development and go ahead and clone over one of your subprod instances. Next, you want to verify the upgrade configurations. First thing you need to do is go and check the monitor, right? So as your subprod's being upgraded, you can watch the monitor, and the upgrade monitor is great. It tells you where it's at, and what's going on, and that will help. And then after that gets done, in that monitor is going to show you what's been skipped, what the problems are, and it'll let you know if it failed. I haven't had one fail, but I understand it will let you know that.
Okay.
You're going to go start testing. Subprod instance, subprod 1, you're going to test. Send everybody and their dog to do whatever they can do to test to try and break it. I mean, that's where you get the quality there. You want to make sure and get everybody testing what they do. So
a lot of people, I find that when going into clients or going into consulting situations, that a lot of people don't have a robust testing setup, or they don't know exactly what to test, and they look at you and like, well, what are we supposed to test? And I mean, the answer to that is you test everything. What you do, right?
Yeah.
So every major process you do, you need to have a test case for it.
Every workflow you got to test. Every form you have to test. Every table you have to make sure everything's together on. But look at the skip stuff, and read the notes. So one of the things that people forget to do, don't do because they don't want to, is reading the actual release notes from each version. Now, don't get me wrong. Read the short version, because if you read all of it, it's like 490 pages long. So it is. You don't need to go down to that level.
Take me 6 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But they have a shortened version. ServiceNow provides. That's kind of like highlights. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're changing. Cliff notes. Yes, I like Cliff notes.
Upgrade for dummies.
Yeah, exactly. So, go through that. That's part of the research and planning phase. Make sure you know what to expect before you upgrade. And then when you get that, then you got to say, okay, what do we do? Let's have everybody start working in it. Let's start basically have somebody on your service desk working their tickets and putting in incidents, and somebody that's in your change management process, testing changes, and not just one, right? Throw in a whole bunch of standards, a whole bunch of normals, a whole bunch of, changes. And so once you get all that done and you get it tested out, you're going to find things that aren't working the way they're expected. You're going to create an update set. Make sure everything gets in the update set for it, because that's what you're going to move over to your subprod 2 in order to do your additional testing.
Now, what's an update set? Can you go back and explain that a little bit?
Update set, think of it as a repository for your code. for everything that you do. So you create this update set and you get in the update set, and then everything you do is saved in there. Everything you change in the system is saved in there.
Now, is that data as well as code, or is that just code?
No, it's code fields. There's a lot of stuff that isn't actually. Okay. So things like groups, adding a name to, so data inside the table will not be saved in that.
Okay, but that's taken care of with the clone.
That is taken care of from the production clone. Okay. Right? But if you change something in that data in your subprod 1, when you move it to subprod 2, it's obviously not going to move.
Okay. Makes sense. So ServiceNow added something, a couple of versions ago called Automated Test Framework?
Yeah, so ATFs. Yeah. So reduce, you need to focus on those before you go do the next upgrade. They take a little time to build. I'm not going to say they don't. They're not a 5-second build, so you've got to work on them. But get everything in that. So, right, test everything out that way. And it will allow you to test your system quickly and get ready for your upgrade faster.
So an automated test framework is basically you build a process that you can fire off as an event that basically does data entry, runs through the process for you.
Yes, yeah. So it will actually create however many incidents you tell it to create. Create 50 incidents, right? Create 20 changes. And it does that, and it checks for any errors or any problems, right?
Great.
Don't get me wrong. You are still going to have to do some individualized testing. But if you're like me, I send all my developers to go do all that initial testing that can be done by the ATFs before I send it to end users for testing.
That's a good idea.
So, because I do that, and if I had the ATFs, I wouldn't have to spend so much time for the team. I could run the ATFs, have one of my guys do a little bit of visual testing, and then send it to the end users to start testing.
Okay, so you've done your automated test, you've done your development test, you've done your user testing, and you think, okay, now everything's good to go. Then what?
So, you've got your fixes together. You move it over to your subprod 2 environment. You move the update set into the new environment, into the subprod 2 environment after the upgrade. And then you got to go back through testing, right? So run those tests again. The ATFs, they take no time to run. Send it to end users. They don't have to spend as much time the second time around, right? We want to check anything, especially that was a problem the first time around.
So this is kind of a sanity check.
It's a sanity check. Did we really fix everything? Yeah. Okay. Once that's done and everything looks great, we just simply go back and get it started with our production system. Get started doing the upgrade. Get the upgrade done. Move the update sets over. We did it at 11 o'clock the other night to our upgrade. We had the upgrade the other day, and at 11 o'clock we started it. Checking the monitor, it was done in 35 minutes. Then we applied the patches. Everything was done so quickly. The rest of it was the sanity check in production. Don't do live testing, by the way, but go in and look at things, right?
Don't dev and prod.
Don't dev and prod, and don't run a bunch of test stuff in the production.
90% of the fun out of the job.
Yeah. As it sends the CEO messages, I'll never forget. I learned that lesson the hard way, right? So I ended up at one of the companies. We were moving a process to production, and as we moved the process to production, we forgot to turn off notifications, and so we had to switch basically a checkbox off and then back on, and it sent 2,500 emails saying that their systems are not compliant to everybody in the organization.
That's awesome.
And then sent 2,500 more saying they were now compliant.
That's awesome. Well, at least it covered you back.
Right, yeah. I mean, nothing like spamming people.
Yeah. So testing is very important. Making sure that that's done. We used to call them smoke tests.
Yes,
so that came from working on circuits where you basically apply power and see if it catches fire. If it doesn't catch fire, it's good to go.
Yeah.
But But that's the smoke test. That's what it's called, a smoke test. Turn it on and see if it smokes.
I like that. I like that a lot.
All right, so you've run the upgrade. Then you moved the upgrade to production, and now are you done, or do you need to do anything else?
Now, once it's in production and everything looks good, just make sure you have support staff in case something does break. Don't say, okay, it's great, and go on vacation. You know, you want to stick around to make sure that if there's an issue that it's resolved quickly for your end user. We have to keep buy-in, right? We need to keep everybody happy, to keep people buying into the things that ServiceNow can do, and you can only do that with happy customers.
So don't flip it on and run.
Yeah, don't flip it on and run. I know the temptation's there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning when you're doing these upgrades, right?
Yeah, we get done. So you know what? I'm going to sleep for the next 72 hours. So if you need me,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not disturb is on. You don't need to do anything else. Yeah. All right. So that's a quick fly through of upgrades and cloning. Now, every upgrade is going to be different because every environment's different. That's one of the benefits of ServiceNow is it comes to you, you build it for your environment, which means that there's not a template that's a universal template for upgrades. So every instance that's out there is going to have its own unique set of challenges and problems.
Absolutely. But go out there. There is an upgrade checklist that ServiceNow provides you that is amazingly thorough. It is a PDF. Google it. It'll come up. Trust me. It'll be on the top 5. It's great. ServiceNow upgrade checklist is fantastic, and it comes directly from them, from their professionals. They know what they're doing. So that's a good thing, a good resource,
Okay, sounds great. Now let's do the worst case scenarios. Say you do all your tests, you do all your smoke tests, you don't notice any smoke, right? You get it out there into production, but there's something wrong. Can you roll back? No, cannot roll back.
So no, you cannot roll back the upgrade. Okay. So that's one reason we did it at 11 o'clock at night. So what happens is, yes, you can restore it from a backup. Okay, they back it up every night. They back it up on a regular basis. So what I found is, it seems like in my instance, it depends on yours, they always run a backup about 6 o'clock.
Can you configure that, or is that ServiceNow does it?
ServiceNow does it. I'm not sure if you can request that through the High Portal. I believe you can request it from the High Portal.
I think you can.
So definitely something to look at. So what I do is I know there's a nightly backup, and it happens pretty early in the evening. So what I'll do is I'll go in there, make sure the backup's done, right? And then I'll do the upgrade after that.
That reminds me of something that's probably important for a business owner or for someone non-technical to understand is with ServiceNow, you don't flip the switch. You schedule with them to flip the switch for doing the upgrade, right?
Right. Which is great, honestly. Which also means that they're aware it's going on, and they are aware they're going to need support staff in case something does happen that's not right.
Now, is that for all instances or just the main production instance?
All instances.
Okay. So you have to schedule it with ServiceNow. So you can't just on the whim decide to upgrade.
Right. That's all done through the High Portal. Now, on the clones, you can actually request those in your production instance, right? Okay. So what you can do is go in, request the clone yourself. It's still done by ServiceNow or a bot or by something, but you can request it from your production instance.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else we need to talk about?
No. Clone often. Upgrade often. Test often. Stay on top of it. Don't let it go too far, because it becomes a bear to get right.
Make a cup of coffee before you start.
Yeah. You don't have to do it at midnight. Matter of fact, this is just the organization that wanted to do it then. There is another option, right? This happens behind the scenes. You could actually do it during the day. But I don't necessarily like that, just in case something does go awry. But it is an option to do it during the day, and then at the end of the upgrade, apply the patch or the fixes, and you're done. But it's a little more risky.
We talk about doing it during the day, though. How long will users be out of the system?
They're not.
They're not.
That's the one nice thing about ServiceNow is it doesn't actually kick anybody out. Now they may end up not seeing the new stuff until they log out and log back in.
Okay.
So
you can do a live upgrade while people are working. If you're a 24/7 organization, you can run this without an outage window.
Absolutely. There is no outage from doing a ServiceNow upgrade.
It's still a good idea to have manual processes as a backup, but theoretically,
and it can slow it down a little.
You're not going to be interrupted.
But I've done lots of upgrades and never had any of them completely stop anybody's ability to work.
And I will say that we have collectively been through 8, 9, 10 upgrades at least.
Yeah,
and
at least.
Never had any major catastrophes.
No. It's even with the heavily customized. But that goes back to planning, right? That goes back to the fact that we have to do it right, so we do that testing and we do all of that fun stuff. Sounds
good. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. We're going to be at Knowledge. Jason's going to be at Knowledge this next week.
Yes.
Knowledge is ServiceNow's Woodstock?
Yes, that's exactly.
It's like
exactly.
Woodstock for geeks.
Yes.
So, so Jason will be at ServiceNow Knowledge. He's gonna try to record podcasts from ServiceNow. So if you'd like to be on the podcast,
find me, get me,
send him a message on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely.
Or an email or something like that. Our email is ServiceSharp@sharpstonegroup.com. We'll post our LinkedIn information in the show notes. And thank you. We'll be back next week. Actually, we'll be broadcasting
from Knowledge
nightly. So we'll have an episode every night. Not necessarily maybe a huge episode every night, but it kind of depends. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to do some interviews.
And it depends on who I'm going to be able
to
get to come to the interview. So I'm hoping to get some of the ServiceNow guys So we'll see how that goes.
Be very cool. Thank you.